Hi, students. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. Thank you so much for the love and support. Hope you are great. There is this man who actually he has existing health condition, right? And you all know that Obamacare and Affordable Care Act. So to them, he was like they should strike, like remove Obamacare, right? And it seems like he does not understand that Obamacare is the same thing, Affordable Care Act, right? But he wants Obamacare to be removed. So when they told him that he's been benefiting from the Affordable Care, which is also Obamacare, why did he say remove Obamacare? Because Obama is a black man. So anything that got to do with people that look like me is a no-go area. Not knowing that the same thing he is asking them to strike out is also something that is keeping him alive. And he is actually out there crying. Now, the truth is that a majority of you do not listen because this Affordable Care Act was something that was in Project 2025. Majority of you think Project 2025 is your joke to this very moment, but you all are going to experience it full time. Now, a lot of people are beginning to understand that it is no joke because they are already crying, saying that if you are part of the people that voted for this administration, it means you took away my medical help, this thing, and all that. But man, you all really suck. But it is really going to be real. Let's get
Hold the F on. Trump voters with pre existing conditions are out there crying now because they just realized Obamacare is the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act that they just voted to repeal because they were good thanks to Obamacare. Are you effing kidding me? I can't with this. Yes, unfortunately, MAGA nuts are just now realizing that the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare are one in the same. The Do Your Own Research crew did not do their research and voted against their own interest. And now that they voted the man into office who's going to get rid of their health insurance, now they're crying. Not only that, they are pissed off with the Democrats for naming the Affordable Care Act Obamacare. Yep, the Do Your Own Research crew. They do not know that it was the Republicans that named the Affordable Care Act Obamacare, and they did it to incite them to manipulate their feelings against the Affordable Care Act. Tell the truth, MAGA nuts. You thought they were separate, and you thought Obamacare was for the black people. That's why you wanted to get rid of Obamacare. That, and because Obamacare was tied to the black president. That's why you wanted to get rid of Obamacare. This is what happens when you're driven by hate and division and you don't do your own research. Unfortunately, there are millions of other people, including you, that will now have to find out because of your stupidity.
You know, it's kind of astonishing how in the year of our Lord 2024, going on to 2025 now, there are people walking around today, U.S. citizens, who do not know that the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare are one and the same. What's worse is that they are actively taking part in and benefiting from the Affordable Care Act and then trashing Obamacare every chance they get simply because that man's name is attached to it. You see, you can't underestimate stupid. It always finds a way. Now, I could understand if this confusion was happening when, the Affordable Care Act was first introduced, right? But we coming up on at least 10 years. I think it's been 10 years, in fact, right? And there are still people, most of them in MAGA mob, who don't know that my man Barry, the 44th president, got them affordable health care. I've been on Obamacare before. It's great. It's great. Cheapest health insurance I ever got. And they actively trashing it because there's nothing but air up here. It's crazy. I'll never forget. I used to work at the Best Buy in the Geek Squad. I was a computer technician. And I had this one coworker, white shorty. She was kind of fat, not gonna lie. Anyway, she was from Maine. Super awkward, introverted, nerdy little white girl, bro. And this was around the time where Trump was either campaigning or he was already in office, right? And me and her, we never had no problem. She was sweet, no issues whatsoever, right? But then, she's from Maine, and I was like, you probably one of them ones, bro. Like, I'm gonna be careful around you. And sure enough, I just happened to be talking about how I had to get on Obamacare because I turned 26. I had to get off my mom's insurance. And she was just like, I mean, good for you, but I mean, it really sucks that, taxpayers are being forced to da-da-da-da. The usual dribble, talking about how, taxpayers got to pay for that and whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. And then I just so happened to ask her, like, what are you on? She's like, oh, I'm on ACA. I just looked at her like she was stupid. And then she's like, what? I'm like, you do know the Affordable Care Act is Obamacare. She's like, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is. She's just like, no, they're different. And I was just looking at her like, this bitch fucking stupid. Ultimately, I let it go because it's not my job to challenge stupid where it stands. You just got to let somebody else handle that. But it just goes to show that some people just no brains up here.
Dear President Trump, I know I don't look so good. I've been undergoing chemotherapy since May, and it takes a lot out of you. The good news is that Obamacare is keeping me alive and can cure my stage 4 cancer, but I need to keep my insurance. Your latest plan will put me and millions of other Americans at risk. Throwing us to the mercy of the insurance companies is not the way to go. We need the protections of the Affordable Care Act so that people with pre-existing conditions will be covered. We need somebody that will stand up for us rather than selling us out.
Apparently, a lot of them are figuring out that Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are the same thing, and they actually voted against their own self-interest. If you voted for them, you took away my health care. Not only did you take away my health care, you took away my ability to get insurance at all because I have pre-existing conditions. And that's just one of the minuscule ways you've affected people in this country.
I think it's actually crazy that in the year of our Lord 2024, people still don't know that Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act are the same thing. Like I look at the exit polls on like college educated voters versus non-college educated voters, and I think that Republican messaging is so much more sinister because their demographic really don't be knowing shit. Their voters just hear what they say and take it at face value and run with it. Like, it has been, what is 2008? I can't even do the math in my head. It has been so many years since Obama has been in office. And for a voter base to still not know that those two things are the exact same thing, and one of the most sinister things about it is that they message it as Obamacare as if it's some brilliantly different thing, and it really isn't. And so many of their voters use the Affordable Care Act. It's fascinating. It should be studied.
This post has blown up on the Bird app because a lot of people don't realize that the Affordable Care Act is the reason that a lot of young people can stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26 years old. And if you didn't know, as of March 23rd, the Affordable Care Act was passed 14 years ago in 2010. And as a health economist, I'm here to tell you why the Affordable Care Act is one of the most monumental pieces of healthcare legislation over the last 50 years. It did a lot. In fact, from 2010 to 2016, the number of uninsured people was cut in half. 20 to 24 million more Americans now have health insurance because of the Affordable Care Act. A lot of this increase in coverage had to do with something called Medicaid expansion. In 2014, the federal government offered to increase its contribution of federal match rates if states offered to cover people who made up to 138% of the poverty. As of December 2023, 41 states and the District of Columbia have expanded Medicaid coverage. There have been upwards of 600 economic and public health studies looking at the impacts of those states that expanded Medicaid versus those that didn't. Have come to a consensus that Medicaid expansion has improved health insurance coverage, increased the number of visits, improved health outcomes, and improved the affordability of healthcare services across the board. It's been instrumentally effective. The Affordable Care Act also prevented insurers from denying coverage with those with pre-existing conditions. Essentially, why health insurance companies did this is because people with pre-existing conditions are more expensive to cover because they need additional healthcare services. The definition of a pre-existing condition is pretty large. Things like anxiety and depression were considered pre-existing conditions. Health insurance providers could deny you coverage because of those diagnoses. The Affordable Care Act also mandated that all insurance companies must provide essential health benefits as well as preventative care and screenings for women. This has changed because of certain Supreme Court cases, but in general, things like birth control and pap smears, those are all covered by the Affordable Care Act. Insurance must cover these essential health benefits in some way. Before the Affordable Care Act, they were not mandated to do so. The bill also established the Affordable Care Act exchanges, which provided affordable self-coverage. The provisions of this bill have also been changed because of Supreme Court cases, which I'm happy to talk about. And also, this bill isn't perfect. There's actually a lot of things this bill was supposed to do, but because of senators like Joe Lieberman, it did not happen. All things considered, the Affordable Care Act has been an instrumental first step in greatly expanding healthcare coverage. If you have any questions, let me know.
I didn't realize how disconnected people were from how the political machine works in America until I saw people genuinely asking why Republicans would rebrand the Affordable Care Act as Obamacare. And there were so many Republicans sort of sitting here confused at the end of the election, I thought Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act were different things. The reason why they have two terms for the same policy is because Republicans understood that many people who disliked Obama, their dislike for him was not rooted in his policies. I'm not going to sit here and accuse people of certain ideologies, feelings, biases, but I will say Republicans understood that the root cause of that dislike had more to do with Obama as a person than it did with his policies. And they knew that because of blind focus groups. They test different policies with people to see which ones resonate the most. Typically, Democratic Party policies resonate the most. Once they are attached to a politician or a party, that's when you see a drop in support of those policies. It's kind of funny that in an era when Americans were patting themselves on the back and proclaiming we were in a post-racial society, Republicans were harnessing, in part, anti-Black sentiment to turn voters against their own best interest.
There's this American man who came on big social media and said that he voted for Trump because he wanted Trump to scrap Obamacare. Mind you, he's unemployed, right? And if anybody knows about the American healthcare system, it is privatized, which means that you have to pay for your treatments and they can be very expensive. Nevertheless, he decided that he was going to vote for Donald Cheeto, translucent wig wearing as Trump, because he wanted Trump to scrap the Obamacare and continue with the Affordable Cares Act. Not realizing that when Obama launched Obamacare, he made it clear that it was the ACA. The Obamacare is the Affordable Cares Act. So he basically scrapped his entire privilege of getting discounted or cheap healthcare. But that was not what behooved me. What behooved me was when the nigga found out what was I mean, yeah, when he found out, bitch, that Obamacare and the ACA was the same thing. Hear this nigga. Why don't they label them different? The niggas started complaining that they weren't labeled different. Sir, they are the same. Yo, listen, I need to, good night.
Going to the doctor shouldn't feel like a luxury, whether you have a pre-existing condition or not. Healthcare is something that we all need. But for people like JD Vance and Trump, they just don't get it. They want to gut the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is how people with conditions such as diabetes, cancer, can afford to have insurance because there's protections put forth to protect them. Under these plans that Donald Trump and JD Vance are suggesting, these concepts of plans, millions of Americans could lose their access to healthcare. Healthcare should never be a luxury. When you're sick, you go to the doctor. Everyone should be able to do that. There are protections put forth in the Affordable Care Act that protect the ordinary American and ensures that they have access to it. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to expand the Affordable Care Act and add protections to make sure that we, the American people, have access to health care. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
This is all I got from this video. And first of all, I am going to say that as some people don't listen. Why did I say this? I said this because I remember before the election, like I was actually screaming on it here, and I am sure other content creators were also screaming on it. Some people did not even know that this particular Obamacare, well, it's also in Project 2025. Yes. So all this while they've been screaming about Project 2025, a lot of people thought it was a joke. Why did somebody that is benefiting from Affordable Care Act? Because they called it Obamacare, right? So for that reason, it is Black people thing, not my thing. Then they still went ahead to do what they did by voting against their own interest. You know, I remember there was a time I told you guys about how, before the election, and people were trying to also educate Black men, asking them, do you know that, do you know anything about Obamacare? And so majority of them were like, oh yeah, my grandparents are on it and they benefit. So like, they have existing health, some diabetes and all that, heart attack, like some things like that. So the video that I saw, they were like, when they were going through that, the Project 2025, they were telling them where to check. And they were explaining that for them. So majority of Black men saw that. And some of them said, if I ever vote again, if I ever vote for the other person, it means my grandparents or my parents' health will deteriorate. And maybe we might end up being in debt for the rest of our lives because of that, So I don't think this is new. It is new to some people because they refused to listen when people were talking about Project 2025, because for them, they said Project 2025 that Donald Trump had nothing to do with it, right? And I still brought videos here trying to let people know that how do you say that somebody is not part of something when his name appeared like 300 and something, almost 400 and something on the paper that is 900 and something pages, right? And he said that he got nothing. He actually came out to debunk that, right? And some people really agree with him. I remember fighting so many people in the comment section. The last this thing I got from that this thing was a woman telling me that I fought with my aunt, and to this very moment she still do not believe that Donald Trump had something to do with it. Yes, to this very moment. And man, really, some things are just really so hard. Now, for those that are crying now that they have pre-existing health condition and all that, Majority of you also voted against your own interests. And you all are masking, trying to use like strong face to say that if you voted for this person, you also took away my, like, insurance or health care this thing. Well, now, like, I am going to ask this. Why is it that health care is something to this very moment very hard to get in US? I know it is privatized, but the money that is being used to buy whey and pounds, right? And also be given to other countries. What happened to health insurance? Because last I checked, the Israel that some money has been going to and some other countries have health insurance. Like they have, sorry, yeah. Yes, sorry, free medicals, free health insurance, like it's sorry, free health care, right? But people that look like me are still struggling to access some certain things. And the last I checked, I still remember bringing to you people why they do not want to make it a free healthcare this thing, right? Because they feel like we are not too strong that, I don't know how to say it, but yeah, they felt like we do not deserve it, and that if they make it free, people that look like me are also going to benefit from it. I brought that video here probably last year or last 2 years. Yes. So yeah, it is what it is. And the leopard is absolutely going to eat some people's faces, because if this thing ever happens, a lot of people will smell rod. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.